Thank you very much, everyone, and welcome. I know this is a bit of a harrowing day for you, and there's a lot going on. Today's session is really going to cover this notion of, and I love the word trainer keeps getting thrown around, and I know that ideally in the training world, you have months and months of practice and a lot of time to be able to do this. So we haven't got much time, but we want to cover a fair bit of ground in this, and I do hope that I can leave you with some tips that can help you this afternoon and enlighten some elements of that presentation that you're doing, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we're going to do that in a number of areas. And I think it's going to build on some of the things that Ahmed has brought forward with regards to from a pitch perspective, and I want to contextualize and structure that a little bit more as we go through that. When I talk about pitching of any kind, the presentation that you're doing, one of the things that you keep in mind is the fact that we don't necessarily know what we don't know. And there's an element that we refer to as the unconscious and conscious competence. And we all start in any kind of skill set in this area of unconscious incompetence. We don't know anything about what we don't know. We are terrible. We pretend we know things. We're unaware of our whereabouts and our surroundings, and that's that first element here. There comes a point in our lives where, and it's a critical one, where we know we are consciously incompetent. I remember way back to the first time I actually tried to drive. This is not necessarily a proud moment in my time. I was 13 years old, and I was having an argument with my younger brother. And I convinced him that I know how to drive a car already. Of course, being a younger brother, he kept poking fun at me further and further, and I decided to prove it to him by stealing my mother's car and taking it out for a little ride. And it was that moment in time when I sat in front of behind the steering wheel, and I realized for the first time that I might have seen people drive that does not make me a great driver. And that was that moment of conscious incompetence. But obviously, not to let him down, nor look terrible myself, I plowed forward. Not into anything, I actually managed to move the car a little bit. But with practice, and as we move along and we start to learn a certain skill, we move to a critical element, and that's our conscious competence. When we know we're good at something. And many of us get there. If I stick with the car analogy for a moment, today you don't need to necessarily tell yourself, I'm now using the clicker to turn left, I'm now going right, I've got to check my rear mirror. We're in a level of conscious competence that things just flow. And that's where you want to be. You want to be in that conscious competence. You do at one point move into what we refer to as unconscious competence. It flows. You just get out there and you talk. I think the example that I saw was great. You get out there, you do what you do, you don't even have to think about it. There is a possible fear though here. When you spend too much time, you no longer practice to perfect. And we've got to keep moving from that level 4 to that level 3 every single time and recognize where we are in that moment. That sense of awareness, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit later on. If we look at the presentation cycle, and this is very much applicable to your pitch, and I want you to consider this as you go through today. As you're refining some of the elements, as you're talking about what you want to do, the cycle in itself is that preparedness, preparation, your introduction. We're going to talk about that maintaining interest. And I know 3 minutes sounds very, very short, but rest assured, you can lose the jury's interest. You can lose it in a large audience, a one-on-one. It certainly happens, and we'll talk about that, and this notion of meeting objectives. So it's about what do I need to know and do before I start. It's about how do I make that right start. And this is a critical one here for most people. And ultimately, how do we make sure that people remain engaged? And last but not least, how do I know I've done the job that I came here to do? How do I walk off that stage, walk out of the room and know exactly that I know that the objectives were exactly as I wanted them. So this is really the element here. To Ahmed's point, Pascal had once said, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. It is not about the content, it is not about the depth of it, it is not about depth by PowerPoint and slide after slide after slide. Try to make your pitch precise. Try to ensure that you get that point, and it's not about that overdose of content. There are 3 areas that we're looking at. We're going to talk about the purpose, the process, and the payoff. At the end of the day, that's what people want to hear. They want to understand where that is with regards to the why, the aims, and the objectives. They want to know the what is it that you're going to talk to the house, and they're going to talk to us about the what. What am I getting out of this? That what's in it for me. And that's all they want to hear. So let's talk about these and where do we go from these here. What is the why? The why to me is the preparedness and that opening, that intro, that agenda in your head. It's not about putting up a slide with the agenda. It's not about what we're going to talk about today. It's about getting the message across, about the areas that you want to cover. And in the world of presentation and pitches, there are 3 things you've got to consider. Am I here to inform, inspire, or persuade? Which is it? You've got to make a decision before you get on that stage. If you're looking to inform, great, then do that. But if you're looking to inspire and persuade, if you're looking to motivate and get a decision out of them, we heard earlier, it's about asking for the cash, for the money, for talent, whatever it might be. Make sure you're crystal clear in your mind before you walk on there. I love that for those of you looking in the room, you might not recall, there came a time we used to watch news on the television before your apps and before everything came to our phones to us. And we used to watch that, and I always was impressed by how they would create the news. They would tell you, news at 10, we're going to talk about this. And then they talk about it, and then they summarize by telling you what we've just talked about. And what was compelling about that is everybody remembered the information. That's what powerful pitches, even for information, are done about. It's about getting the point across and drilling it home, even if it sounds repetitive. But it's about the one key point or the elements that you want them to walk away with. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, for those of you that are looking at inspire, motivate, and asking for the business, asking for the money, asking for the talent, whatever your ask is, it's going to come down to the how. And how do we do that? The first of which, how do we open a pitch? And this is a critical one. For those of you, I know you might be nervous, you're going to get up there, it's how do we start? It's not about you, that's the first thing, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. It's about that powerful opening, be it a question. It's a rhetorical one. You're not asking for someone to answer it, but it's about something that's compelling. I talk a lot about psychology and the use of our brain when it comes to presentations, pitches, when we're standing up in front of an audience. And first and foremost, for some ungodly reason, we tend to remember questions. When somebody asks, the tone in our voice tells me, oh, I've got to pay attention. And that's a fantastic way to get people's attention and get them to zero in on what your message is. Very often it's about using quotations. We love quotes. We love to hear what other people said, what famous people said. It works very well. We use stories, and I think that was a great idea. That's a starting point. Tell a story. That's what people want to hear. And there's a very simple reason for this, by the way. It is one of the earliest recollections we have. As little kids, our parents, grandparents, whoever it might be, read stories to us. We relate to that. It's compelling, it's exciting, we want to find out what comes next. Tell a story to open up with. Use that to your advantage. If it's not about a story, then say something factual. Give the statistics, the numbers that are behind that. Again, people are very excited by that. Historical elements. Again, comes out with fact. The elements of how you're going to relate where you are in the world and where you are today are fantastic opening areas that we can utilize. And beyond that, this notion of mind reading. When I talk about mind reading, I don't think it's a skill that you get, but it's a very interesting way. If you pay attention to a lot of ways that key speeches are opened up, you'll hear the speaker at one point saying, I know what you're thinking. You don't know what you're thinking. But the minute they say that, your mind switches on to say, whatever's coming next, yeah, I was thinking that. It's a mind reading tool. That's all it is. But whatever it is, that powerful opening beats, good morning, I'm very excited to be here. I want to talk to you about. That's not a way to start a presentation. And it's certainly not a way to start a pitch that your life or your career or your future entrepreneurial self is counting on. So look into that, and when you're reworking your presentations today, give that some thought, some consideration of what's that wow factor that was brought up earlier? How am I going to start that presentation? What is it that I'm going to do that's going to make a compelling difference? Now, that moves me to the central theme. I'm going to spend a bit of time on this here. Central themes are not meant to inundate people with information and all that you want to throw in there. But what also you've got to keep in mind is the central theme is the key. You've got to stay there around that point. You might add some information, there might be a question mid-pitch, whatever it might be. You've got to come back to your central theme. And what do we talk about when it comes to central theme, or at the very least, how to structure it? For me, we use something referred to as the DOS conversation. And for those of you in the technology realm, I'm not talking about DOS from 30, 40 years ago, but it's an acronym that we use on how you can stay on point and how you can make sure that people want what you have. To do so, the first thing you've got to highlight are the dangers. People want to know that there's an imminent danger. There's fear ahead. That without what you're about to tell them, we are coming to an end. I'm not saying paint the doom and gloom, but it's the dangers of the world without what it is that you're selling. It comes down to that first and foremost point. We have to set the stage for what we want and the fact that we're coming to tell them how we're going to get them there. Once we categorize that, or once we frame the danger that's out there, here comes the world, not about you, but rather the world of opportunity. It's how do we make sure they understand that despite this danger, there is opportunity abound. There is so much to be had. That's the market that I was talking about classifying that so they know there is so much out there. But the opportunity on its own is not enough. And that's where the solution comes in. It's our ability to frame the solution. That I am the solution. What I have is the solution. When we talk central theme, it is about ensuring that these three elements are out there. We highlight the dangers, what the world looks like without me, where are the opportunities in that market, and what does it really look like, and last but not least, the solution that you've come to talk about. Your central theme needs to keep coming back to these areas. In a 3-minute pitch, there is no easier way to do this than by utilizing the DOS conversation without getting awfully lost as you're doing that. So keep this in mind as you reframe or rework your presentations if you're looking to do so. I want to talk about the concentration curve now for a moment. Now I'm putting this up there for 45 minutes, and many of you might realize this, but in any presentation, including the one that I'm giving right now, if I was standing in front of you for 40 minutes, at around the 17th minute, you will absolutely lose interest in what I'm having to say. It's just the way the brain works. 14 to 17, or maybe about 20 minutes, we start to lose interest. So much so, your brain does what we call a walkabout. You start thinking about your shopping list a little bit later on, where you're going for lunch, what's going to happen, and somehow you're still in the realm of what's being discussed, but you stepped out for a little bit. And what's interesting, again, the way the mind works, is as we hear the speaker closing out, their tone changes a little bit, we snap back in just in time to say, wow, that was really fantastic, that was very, very nice. Now, interestingly, for those of you in the 3-minute pitch, this is no different. The brain tends to walk about on a one-on-one conversation around the 8th to 10th second. In one-on-one conversation, I feel sorry for friends of mine, but on the 8th to 10th second, we actually step away. And we've got to be brought back into the conversation. So when you're in your pitch, understand that there could be anywhere from 6 to 8 times where the judges will no longer be in the moment. Not because they don't like your pitch. There's something's happened. The brain keeps functioning. The subconscious is going and it's throwing information onto our conscious for us to deal with. Keep that in mind and ensure that you keep a level of interest. And interest comes in various forms. You can utilize anecdotes. Tell stories about that. Use examples, data, anything of the sort. Use statistics, facts, figures, humor, whatever you can to ensure that people retain people's attention. That's what it's going to come down to. They want to pick up on that one point, that second, third, fourth point within your central theme that says, aha, I'm in there. Then you've got to keep bringing them back and make sure the interest is maintained at a very, very high level. So something to keep in mind that's there. Lord Bancroft had once said that a speech is like a love affair. Any fool can start one, but it takes considerable skill to end it. And I tell you that when you end your speech, a critical element is going to be how you close out. That is the last thing that people remember. Our brain, once again, has a very, very funny way of working. We've got something referred to as the visual cortex right in the back. We actually snap a photograph of every incident in our lives, and we store it back there. And we send these messages across the various parts of the brain. But that visual cortex and the way it works, it's the last memorable moment that we've had with an individual. And if I walk off that stage with a simple thank you at the end, I have not left them with something to ponder. I have not left an image in that visual cortex that says, you know what, I want to see them again. I want to hear more, I want to learn more. So it's going to come down to this critical element that's also very important. How do we close? Now, closing is not very complicated. It's a lot very different than opening either. It's very much about using questions, quotations. It's about a story. It's about the summary and an alternative. And it's not about an alternative that you're giving them another solution, but rather, what is the alternative? Is there really anything beyond what I've explained? Or have I delivered to you the solution that you require to move forward, be it an angel investor, be it a pitch, be it a competition, whatever you're looking for, it's definitely there. And most important close is the action. We tend to get up there, we make the pitch, and we forget to finish off with the action that I expect immediately after I'm done. What is it that I'm getting? And that's a very important one. Now, when we talk about this notion here, that means the structure looks like so. It is about that central theme. It's about the DOS conversation, the dangers, the opportunities, the solutions that I present, sandwiched in between a great opening and a great closing. But that's not enough. What does that DOS conversation do, or what does it have to feed? And this is where not the overall process, but that messaging. First thing we talk about is something referred to as the you of people. And the you is about the person sitting opposite you, not you as the me. It's about the person in front of you. We have an inverted triangle that we refer to as the you, we, I sits at the very bottom of that. And it was interesting seeing the presentation where the team, or talking about the team, was not number 1 on his list. It was not number 3 on his list. It was number 10 on his list. And talk about the team, the people that make it happen. That's the I. And nobody wants to hear about that up front. The very first thing they want to hear in a pitch is you, the investor, the jury, the people that are out there. This is how this benefits the world. This is how we as an organization can collaborate. This is how the investors, this is how the founders can get together and make it happen, and how I've done the following or the team's done the following. It is not about you, but it's about the person that's sitting right across from you. So when you're doing your presentations, keep that in mind. If you need to do an introduction about yourself, which I believe at this stage you don't, keep it till the very end. If there's anything about me as an individual, keep it to the very end. It's not of interest, and it's not worth being part of the 3 minutes that you've got. Now, with that in mind, there's something that we need to figure out. And this is what we refer to as our motivators, why people make decisions. And you've got a small audience, so to speak, here. Your audience can be much larger. But the world is motivated by 1 of 2 areas. Either we have what we refer to as business needs, or what we refer to as personal wants. It's one or the other. And your solution, your pitch has to address one or the other. When we talk about business needs, it's stuff such as gain. What am I gaining? What is the world gaining? What is a certain market gaining from that product, that service, that offering that I got? What am I saving from them? What are the certain savings that I'm getting out of that? And that becomes an important one. Is there something to be saved, to be reduced, waste, whatever it might be? And that's a very big driver, but it's a business need. It is very much a functional element, not necessarily an emotional element. It might be about the functionality, that what you provide is a functionality. When we're talking about apps very often, it's the app itself and what it does and how it brings worlds together. It's the function that is very appealing to people. Sometimes it's the safety element. It's what do I provide? People want safety. Not only safety, but they want security. I always think back when whomever invented the advertising and the branding for Volvo. I know some of you definitely don't get anywhere near a Volvo. But Volvo promotes one and only one thing. They don't promote fast. They don't talk about awesome. They don't talk about sleek. They talk about safety. You're getting a Volvo and your family's safe. And they've been doing the same thing for decades. And it works. They appeal to one market. They know that they can talk about business needs. It's not about the emotional wants. It's not about the personal wants. It's a business need that they figured out how to market to the world. You too might have a product, survey, app, whatever it might be, that simply talks about one of these elements. But there's another side. Other people, when we're looking to inspire and motivate, are motivated by something completely different. It's not a business need, but rather a personal want. And this is in the worlds of pleasure. What gives me pleasure? What excites me? What do I get when I wake up in the morning and say, this is awesome. This has changed my world. So your pitch may very well be appealing to a personal want, an emotional chord that you're trying to hit, and it has nothing to do with a big business functionality. And that's all right. But we need to know that that's the message that we're trying to send across. For some people, it's loyalty. It's this notion that I can get attached to a certain brand, a certain offering, a certain startup. And that sense of loyalty is what you're trying to buy into or certainly tap into. For some other people, it's the notion of ego. I'm affiliated with this or that. And as much as we hate to talk about stuff like this, it's a reality. For us, ego is very big and it's a huge motivator. We make very wrong decisions in life based on ego. We buy the wrong type of car that we can't afford. Or we want a certain type of house, and we want the larger TV because the next door neighbor has one also. And whatever it might be. These are not rational decisions. They're highly emotional and often they're based on ego. And if that's the trigger with the jury, with the audience, or whoever you're talking to, that's okay. Capitalize on it. Leverage it. If that's what you've got that's available and you can hit that chord. For some people, it's a notion of envy. We want what other people have. We want to be involved in that. I wish I had thought of that. Not a jealousy element, but envy. And envy is a very powerful motivator for people. It gets us moving and to make decisions faster. And the last one of the most important, or at least certainly the most powerful motivators on a personal and emotional level, is fear. We are stricken with fear, and when we do so, we get to make decisions. So for those of you that have a solution that can deal with fear and talk about that, this is an area that you also want to capitalize. It's okay. At the end of the day, you're here to make a pitch. And that pitch has to get out there to the right people for the right reasons, and it has to show a compelling purpose to persuade and motivate people to make a certain decision on your behalf and to move forward. Find out, think about this when you go back to rework your pitches, to review them. Am I looking for a business need to address? Am I looking for a personal one? And from there, you create your presentation. Now, that being said, that's not always enough. And there's this notion that we talk about of command and control. How do we present, how do we make sure that we retain the audience's interest, not just in a compelling content level? And this is this notion of speaking with presence, is how do you make a difference when you're up there? And this is something I'm going to touch on, not necessarily quickly, but something that you might very well know with regards to the Moravian theory years ago about how do we communicate to people and what makes the difference. And he broke down communication into three areas. What we refer to as verbal communication, non-verbal communication, and paraverbal communication. And the numbers are up there for you to see. Some of you might know this, and if you don't, it's sometimes shocking to hear this for the very first time. The words you speak, the verbal communication makes up 7% of the message that you're sending across. Now, before we go any further, that does not mean you can get up for your pitch and just pull out gibberish and say, but Edward said I can say anything. Okay. The words still make a difference. But the fact is, not as much as how the rest of the message comes out there. That's where the differentiator is. So, what am I talking about here? The first of which is that 38% of the top is paraverbal. What's paraverbal? The tone. We have an unbelievable ability to control the message through the tone of our voice. How we say it, what it sounds like, the emphasis that we put on certain words. Every language in the world has actual intonation built in, with the exception of Japanese. That's the only language that doesn't have that. Every other language, we are highly dependent on intonation to get our message across. And that's very important. You intonate the wrong word, it changes the entire message and the way it's received and perceived by the listener. So keep that in mind as you're pitching, as you're talking, those highs and lows that you want to use and how it makes a difference. I often use a very, very simple statement to keep remembering that. And the statement is very simple. I didn't say he stole my car. I'm going to say this sentence a few times. I didn't say he stole my car. I didn't say he stole my car. I didn't say he stole my car. I said he stole my car. I didn't say he stole my car. I didn't say he stole my car. I didn't say he stole my car. That's 7 meanings to one statement. 37% of our communication, 30% of our communication is based on paraverbal communication. Understanding how we sound to the audience, that tone, that voice that comes out there is critical. But a whopping 55% is about what we see. We will make a determination about somebody well before they even open up their mouths. It's the body language that's there. And this is, I think, one of the areas that I would ask you to keep in mind as a critical one when you're in front of the jury. Because this is going to be the differentiator. I saw Ahmed was the leaning forward, the backwards. We put a lot of emphasis on this here. A few years ago, I was in Lebanon delivering a program where I was preparing some people for presentations. We do something called the stop speech, where we give them a topic and they've got 30 seconds to prepare and they got to get up on stage. The reason we do that is we end up focusing a lot on the content. And we videotape this fellow for 3 minutes. And for an entire 3 minutes while standing up in front of the camera and the rest of the audience, he was doing this. I kid you not. I don't know if he was hungry. I don't even think he realizes he does that. But for 3 minutes straight, he was rubbing his belly like it was some sort of Aladdin's lamp. And that's okay as long as we're aware that that's happening. And these are the little elements that we've got to change about ourselves. There's a sense of awareness that we've got to create when it comes to that. There's a reason I stand where I stand when I deliver my presentations. I'm always bothered when I get up to the stage and I find the podium over there. Why? Any ideas? It makes me static. Okay. If I stood back there behind the podium, I don't mind if the podium was over here. I like it close to me, but I like it to be behind it, as you can see. What's that? It's not centered. I don't even stand centered. I stand here, more left to your left for a reason. Physiologically speaking, the left side of the human body is far less guarded than the right side. Study after study, which started with children and then on to adults, tells us that actually people listen more intently to the message that we're sending across when we speak to their left and not to their right side. I hope none of the jury are in the room when I'm saying this. You want to leave me here outside curtain noise. There is a benefit to this here, this element that we actually gain more information, we listen more intently, and we trust more from the left side of the body than we do on the right side. There's call it an invisible shield that we put on the right side of the body. So when we're trying to compel someone to do something, we want to motivate, we want to inspire, standing over here makes a slight difference over there. Now, that does not mean that's the end all be all. You will find yourself in situations where you're cornered over here. You're stuck on the right side. That does not mean, oh my goodness, my pitch is a disaster. Now, you've got to keep fluid, you've got to deal with what you've been handed. But if you've got that opportunity, every little bit counts. I'm going to try something we don't usually do in an auditorium. Can I ask you to put your hand out like this? Okay, I want you to take your thumb and your index finger and I want you to put them together. Fair enough? I want you to take your thumb and your index finger and I want you to put it onto your chin. Later this afternoon, we should talk about where your chin is. That's your 55%. You can go on and on with your pitch, but I can guarantee you the jury are judging you more on what they see than what they hear. So as you're delivering your presentations this afternoon, your sense of awareness of what's going on is absolutely critical. Eyes are on you. The body language does make a difference. It is a huge part of what we do. Our hand gestures. I'm of Arab descent, of course, so my hands moving around non-stop is a very, very important part of what I do. But when I'm delivering a presentation, I also realize that I've got to keep it down a little bit. The flailing arms and so on, that doesn't work very well. It's extremely distracting. 55% of the message is distracting, as a matter of fact. So we've got to make sure that we maintain that level of control. So there is something that we refer to as automatic behaviors versus the sense of awareness of what we're doing. When you're delivering your presentations, it's absolutely critical that you keep that in mind. Do not fall for automatic behaviors that will take over what it is that you're doing. These are critical aspects of a presentation that if we can make these minor tweaks, it changes the world in the message that we're trying to pass across. There's a world that we talk about, this notion when it comes to presentation and pitches. Some of you will be pitching out of what we refer to as survival mode. You've pinned your entire life on this idea. Everything you hope for, your dreams, your goals, your desires, your objectives are on that. For some, your idea is about evolution. And there's a very big difference in the way that we present and the tone that we carry through when I pitch from survival versus when I pitch from evolution. A few years ago, there was a study done that used cats and mice. And they put these mice into a maze, both mazes. But there's a very big difference. On one maze, the mice that were put in there were guided by the cheese that was left at the exit. That was it. The second maze, the mice that were there, they added a cat. And the mouse would obviously need to get away from the cat in order to find the exit. What was interesting in both studies is in both time and time that they would do this, the mouse would get out. But the state of their bodily function after that, when we are in a state of survival, the cat chasing me and I just need to get out, versus the desire to find a solution, get out there, and motivated by it was unbelievable. In fact, when they followed the study, within 24 months, the mice that they were using testing that were followed by the cat died. The others lived 3 to 5 times longer than the first one. Very interesting. This tells me not because we're mice and cats and cheese here, but what it tells me that when we are presenting, that we can choose the status quo, we can choose this mode of survival, we can choose this mode of desperation, and it's going to come out in the voice and our intonation, or we can choose evolution, innovation, and connectivity. And that's what they're going to look for. When you come out there, and it was mentioned, there's a level of confidence, that you can control the stage, you can control the audience. That's what can make a very, very big difference in our presentation. Before I show you this, let me just set this up, and I'm going to wrap up with a few questions and any pointers that you need. I'm not putting this video up because I am a Democrat, I'm a Canadian, not American, but I do have to hand it to somebody such as Obama. And I want you, before you watch this video, this is by the way the Democratic National Convention of 2012. So this is on the level of when he was running for office, and the message that comes across. I do not expect you to watch this video and deliver like Obama this afternoon. But I want you to keep an eye out for the body language, the eye contact, we'll talk about that in a few minutes also, and how that message is displayed and where the intonation of the message comes across. I understand volume-wise, is that going to be okay, or we'll find out? I feel like becoming an American citizen every time I see this just so I can hear this guy talk, but obviously that's no longer the case and he's not around for it. This is an individual who's mastered body language over the years. His use of his hands, his gestures, it is not just about saying the way forward, but it's rather the gesture that comes out with it. The strength and conviction where his hands move like so. His ability to make it look like he's communicating with an entire audience. And for those of, has anybody here ever attended a concert? 15, 20, 30,000 people. I found it very amazing when I talk to people after the concert and they've been sitting kind of they're anywhere near the first 5,000, 6,000 people. And they come out and say, oh my goodness, it was like he was singing right to me. Yeah, I'm not so sure. There's 10,000 people there, but it's the ability to connect with the audience. It's the messages that come across. It's what is perceived eye contact. I do have a little a tip for you, for those of you that sometimes do get stage fright. Eye contact is not a very good thing. You will falter, you might make a mistake somewhere in there. That does not mean look downwards or anywhere else but the jury or whoever you're presenting to. We tend to request that if you're doing that, looking at the side of their hair or focusing on their ear is just as good. And as far as they're concerned, you're making eye contact. But you don't necessarily want to look them straight in the eye. But do not veer away, do not look down. There are micro-expressions. We're not going to get into that in greater detail today, but it's certainly something to keep in mind. It's stage presence. It's that presenting with presence that's out there. How do I command and control? How do I make sure that I create this wow experience? Focusing on my body language, focus at 55%, 38% of paraverbal, my tone, and ensuring that that message, that 7% is still on point, and it focuses on that. So a few things I want to leave you to remember. The first of which is it's not about you. As much as you think it is, because it's the idea, it's what you're trying to pass on, it's about how it appeals to them. The you appeal is to the audience that's sitting in front of you, not about you. We want to know about that, but it comes much later. Ensuring that you have a central theme. And not only just a central theme. Don't veer off. Don't get lost. Make sure you keep going back, you link to it, you keep coming back there. Make sure that you portray that DOS conversation. That people recognize what it is, what the dangers are, the opportunities, and the solution. Even in Obama's message, we heard him talk about where the danger is, but there's an opportunity. What's going to happen? But in the end, he finished off with the solution that we're going to go there together, leave no one person behind, and it's all the way forward. It is a very powerful way to deliver a short, brief, and concise message, and that's what you've got to do. You've got to scare people, you've got to tell them that don't worry, there is a world of opportunity and I am the solution to the opportunities that are out there. We've got to make sure that we be memorable, and that's with an opening and closing remark. Think about those. You've got some time to do so before you get up in front of the jury later on today, and make sure that that's on point also. Ensure also the fact that you maintain composure. Whether we like it or not, everybody is watching. Eyes are on you, and every little bit counts. Make sure that you're aware, you've got a sense of awareness, and avoid some of the automatic behaviors that we might do. I've got them as well, and I'm not going to tell you what they are considering I'm talking in front of you, but we've got to be aware of them and pause them. Stay in the moment and make sure that there's a sense of awareness. You know, if I can tell you anything, make sure you plan your time. 3 minutes is a very long time, but also 3 minutes goes away like this. And you've got to make sure that that message is there. So to your point, rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. Absolutely. Your life does depend on it. And that being said, make sure that you have fun with it. And at the end of the day, the passion that I heard that we talked about, there's design, that's the fun part. There's a world of opportunity that's still coming your way. And when you're up here, they want to buy you, and they want to buy the fun, they want to buy the entire package. They want to buy into that pitch. It's not about the statistics and the numbers and all of the details. That's important. They want that. But they want to know that you're excited. you're having fun with it, and that's certainly no different when it comes to your presentation. I'm going to leave you with one last piece of advice here from Maya Angelou, who had said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And when you're working on your pitches, if I could leave you with that one single remark, is at the end of the day, make sure that you focus on the jury's feelings. What is it that you're trying to pass across? And I suspect you will have a wonderful time doing that. With that, I'm going to wrap up. I want to wish everybody the best of luck, and thank you very much for your time. Thank you. I'll pass it on to you if that's okay. Thank you.